Welcome back to Beyond the Gate, our Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Meg.
And today we're talking about episode 41, The Abyss.
Very excited about this episode.
Yeah.
So in this episode, bound by more than blood, the Elrics have long shared joy and pain. Now, with Al wandering the frigid void and Ed losing blood by Kimblee's hand, the mystical connection of their souls could prove fatal.
That is such a good description, and that, I mean, like, it doesn't encompass all of what the episode is, but it says so much about one point that we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
And this covers manga chapter 76, Shape of a Person, Shape of a Stone, and chapter 77, The Tables Are Turned, A New Transmutation Circle.
I found that the manga stayed very closely to the anime.
Yeah, for this episode.
The anime stayed very closely.
Yeah,
to the
for
manga.
this episode in particular.
Yeah.
I don't think they really could stray. There wasn't enough room for like making anything different.
Yeah, and it only covered like chapter and a half.
Yeah.
Usually it covers a little bit more. But all right, let's get into this because this is just a great episode. We first see Scar and his little group are still walking through the mining tunnels, and they find some, I don't know, this is kind of a random scene. They just like find some dynamite, and
yeah, that wasn't in the manga. But
no, it wasn't.
I feel like that's just like payoff for later because Ed does find dynamite later.
Yeah,
so it's just setting up like this is a mining town. Of course, there's dynamite.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a purpose, but it was kind of funny because May had like picked it up and she was like so scared when she found out it was dynamite, and she's like, "Oh, take it from me! Take it from me! Take it from me!"
Sometimes I forget how young she is, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, she's just a little kid."
Yeah. We see that the storm has passed, and Miles and his men are discussing. And they're saying that they want to kill Kimblee and his men. They want to take them out. And Ed is very much against it. He wants to take them captive. He wants to try to get information out of Kimblee. And he does argue that Kimblee's men may not have a choice in what they're doing, and they don't deserve to die. And Miles, he does agree with Ed, but he's just like in the north, the careless die first. So
yeah, and in the manga, Miles says one of these days that soft heart of yours is going to get you killed.
This is not leading up to anything.
Oh no.
Then Miles and his men leave Ed, and I don't know. I like. They're like talking about him, like, oh yeah, he's just a kid, and I get it. Miles is like, he just doesn't understand. He doesn't have the experience, and he says sometimes killing someone isn't as hard as letting them live.
It's also like the discussion of what's the easy option, because sometimes the easiest thing is like just kill him and get over with, but the harder option can be showing mercy or trying to get to the heart of a problem, rather than just like brushing it aside, killing somebody, and moving on.
Yeah. I mean, I personally am with Ed.
Yeah.
It's like
those men didn't do anything; they're just with the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly.
As for killing Kimblee, I get it. I understand, but I've also seen the destruction that man can cause.
Yeah, so I would be scared to try to go against him. Yeah. Then we go back to the underground tunnels, and Scar is helping translate the notes, and he man, I don't remember the word that he uses, but basically like the notes are talking about gold and immortality and like a golden being, and basically like immortality equals gold. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because gold is like a precious metal and like is the metal that's like desired above all others, and like that's immortality. Like I don't know.
Okay, this is a stretch, but the word he said, it wasn't Kinro, was it?
I don't think so, but that would be, we would have remembered.
Or maybe it was like Aurum or Argentum, like Raina's dog.
I think actually let me
Aurum?
He did say something like that because I was reading in the manga and I was like, okay, is this translation like actually right? I can't remember. Let me go back. So he says first Rasayana. It's a miracle drug that grants longevity. And then he says Arlean.
Arlean.
At least in the I don't know if that's what actually he said in the anime, but that's the word for gold.
Oh, Arlean, yeah. Aurelian? Because maybe it's Aurelian. I'm getting a Google search for that.
All right.
Let's see. Oh, it's a video game character. Sorry. I think it has to do with the sun though, and maybe golden light.
Yeah. Yeah, in the manga it just says it's the word for gold. It just means gold. But then May shares that she's like, "Oh, the golden being that could be referenced to the man who brought alchemy to Shing, who had golden hair and golden eyes." Which yeah, which we know who that is, and Winry does say like, "Oh, that sounds like Ed now."
I'm glad she mentioned that though. Like somebody had to notice that their coloration is different from all the other people around them, given like the Ishvalans, like as soon as somebody has red eyes, everyone gasps and goes, an Ishvalan. So unfortunately with Xerxes it was destroyed, so no one would know that's what Xerxians look like. But with Ed and Al, be like, golden eyes, you must be, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And once again, Yoki is kind of helpful in this situation. He finds an exit to the mine. I mean, he kind of basically like led them underneath the tunnels. So I guess he's not totally useless. But
at this point, he might be dropping some of his selfishness. A,
yeah.
he needs them to survive, but B, he didn't have to help them. He could have just split and parted ways with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's gotta get his revenge.
Good luck.
Yeah. And then we see a really cute scene where the snow is really deep, and so one of the chimeras like carries May, and she's like she's so delighted by that. And as they're walking, they hear some like muffled yelling. And they look and they see Al's leg sticking out of the snow, and Winry and May like rush to him and like dig him out. And we see that, and they free him, and it's very cute because May is like hanging onto his arm, hugging him.
Alphonse!
Yeah, I love that she calls him that. Yeah. And then he, of course, delivers his message that Briggs is no longer safe.
Yep. And in the manga, he also had filled up his armor with provisions and things. So he's like, hey, why don't we all stop to eat? So he brought like blankets and food and all sorts of things. And I thought that was very smart of him.
Yes. And then they all decide, or more Scar decides that he's going to take them to a nearby town where some Ishvalan refugees live. And then they'll figure out their next move from there. And of course they're all like, won't Kimblee notice that you're missing Al? And he's like, oh, Ed has that covered. And we see Ed has made a decoy Al. And with a soldier inside, like manning it. And it's so funny because he like uses a high-pitched voice for Al.
Yeah, and I thought it was a great touch in the manga since obviously they can't, you can't hear when you're reading the manga, but instead the mangaka drew the guy moving this armor suit with like a little skip in his step, like holding his arms out like a toddler chasing after Ed.
Yep, it's pretty great. And Kimblee's men, so they're still obviously searching for Scar, and Kimblee and his men are headed for like the big mining shaft, like that's in the middle of the town. And Ed overhears Miles and his men talking about planning to kill them. And we see sharpshooter is lined up to shoot Kimblee, and then Ed appears and he starts talking to Kimblee. I mean, they don't say it explicitly, but I think that that's Ed's plan. He doesn't want him to die, or he's trying to,
But it's weird because in the anime they frame it like that, like Ed's putting himself out there for one last chance to negotiate instead of just killing him. But in the manga, he doesn't do that. He just like steps out into the open and he's like the diversion. Like this was part of Miles's plan that Ed would distract Kimblee while his men got in position.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think it really was because we never even saw them discuss that.
Right.
Like
it's just like put up differently. It's framed differently.
Yeah. And Kimblee already knows the plan. He's like, he can sense the murderous intent in the air. But then before they can take him down, he creates a cloud of snow with alchemy and disappears. And he goes inside the mining shaft and he finds a trail of footprints and he's like, oh, we're on the right track. And while Kimblee's doing that, his men attack and we see that like the other two, they are chimeras. I think one's a lion for sure. The other one is like a gorilla.
Yeah, I would say gorilla.
Yeah. And at first Ed's like, haha, you can't, I'm safe, you can't see me, but they have a heightened sense of smell, so they're able to attack him. One of them like grabs Ed by the throat and Ed makes his little hand sword thing and his, I don't know, not a sword, like knife. Arm blade, yes. And he fights back, but because he can't see anything, well, actually, first, I really like this. He was sweet. He's just an awesome kid. He's like, don't come in here. He tells Miles and his men not to come in because it's not safe. And they can't see. But then he can't see, so he falls down. I don't know exactly what it is, but he falls. And he lands pretty hard and I love the line. He's like, falling, like that's gonna stunt my growth even more. And he finds some dynamite and to distract the chimeras, he asks them what dynamite is made out of. And I was very impressed with them because they like start listing everything off.
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head. How did they know?
And then one of the ingredients is ammonium nitrate. And Ed
Best facial expression ever. Just I love it. 10 out of 10.
As they say, ammonium.
Ammonia.
No, sorry. Ammonia. He like turns around and he's got his evil Ed look, and you see that he's got plugs in his nose, and he makes a stink bomb. And then the chimeras have been defeated, and he runs off and finds Kimblee.
Yeah, and I love it. There's a manga panel when he finds Kimblee, and he still has the nose plugs in, so he does, well, we call it a farmer blow in my family, but he, like, snorts them out of his nose. He just, like, blows the plugs out.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that. And at first, he tries to, like, he has Kimblee cornered, so he tries to ask him for information. But Kimblee, I mean, we know him. He's not giving anything up. So Ed attacks and he's like, Kimblee's like, oh, he's fast. And he loses his grip on his stone. And then Ed like cuts his hand. Which have the transmutation circles. So he can't do alchemy. But then he's not concerned because he has a second stone. And he's like, you made a mistake, because now I have another chance to kill you. And he reveals the stone in his mouth once again. And he causes an explosion and, the mine shaft, like, honestly, it's a huge explosion. Like, the mine shaft, like, totally collapses. It, like, shakes the ground. Everybody can feel it. And Ed and the chimeras fall in.
Yeah, I was really impressed, especially with like the sound effects and the animation, because I forgot how big of a deal this was when it collapsed, but it was earth-shatteringly loud in my headphones, and you just see all these things implode in on the ground. And it's not like as cinematic in the manga, but there's like this big panel where you just see from a distance what the mine shaft looked like, and this thing like jutted up above all of the housetops. It was huge, and it just slumps over and is gone on the horizon. So it was kind of a big deal that it dropped.
Yeah, yeah. So the dust clears, and Ed at first he's like, oh, I can't believe I fell down. Like, did I fall down the mine shaft? What happened? And at first, like he thinks he's fine, but then he's like trying to get up, and he sees blood like dripping on the ground below him, and we see that he has been impaled by an iron rod, and he just collapses.
And Meg, what was your reaction when we first watched that? Because I think I remember I was in my dorm room and we were like over Zoom when this happened.
I was freaking out. Like I was like, no, Ed, no, what happened?
I think I made my roommate look over at us because I went, what?
Yeah, I very much was freaking out. It's like, not Ed, not my favorite.
My baby.
Yeah. And at the same moment, when Ed collapses, Al's body also collapses, and he's like, my body's being pulled, my soul is being pulled back towards my body. And of course, Winry and May are like totally freaking out. And in the last moment before we go back to Ed, Winry calls out for Ed. I was like,
yeah, in desperation, because she's like, anyone help, Ed.
Yes. And Ed, he wakes up and he's trying to get free, but like I think it's like the iron rod is it's very long. It's like both impaled in his side, but then also like, I think, is it stuck?
It's not stuck in the ground.
Okay, it's not stuck in the ground.
But it would be pretty heavy and hard to move around with it. Like, if he tried to move at all, the weight of the pole would pull him down even further and open the wound even more.
Yeah. All right. And he is thinking about Winry, and he's like, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to make her cry.
So he says something like, I don't want to make her cry over something this dumb.
Yeah. Yep.
My death being dumb. But I do like in the manga, there's a little bit of an expansion on the scene because he's not only thinking about Winry, but he's thinking about Al and even Riza and encouragement they've given him and the journey they've been on.
Yeah, I really like when he's thinking about Riza. Her line when they were talking about Ishval, when she's like, you have to keep living for the people you love. So he's not given up. And so he transmutes the rod to break part of it off, and then he frees the chimeras who have been stuck under the rubble. And at first they're like, why did you free us? Like, we're your enemies. But he's like, I need your help. He asks Kimblee's men to help him pull the rod out. And at first they're like, you're gonna bleed to death within minutes. That's a dumb idea. But he's like, I'm gonna close the wound with alchemy. And they're like, do you even know how to do that? Did you study medicinal alchemy? And he's like, well, I read about it while researching human transmutation. So
I read about it once. Let's see if I can do it.
Right. Hey, there are some people that are like that, and I'm always very impressed. Like, they're like, oh, I read about this thing one time and now I'm going to do it. I
just watched like a billion YouTube videos and then try to do it.
Yes, exactly. Same. So they agree to help him. And while they're pulling out the rod, he is this whole scene is just amazing. But he's like concentrating on, he's trying to think of himself as a form of energy and like how it felt to use the souls that were in envy to harness life and perform alchemy. Also, while he's trying to think about that, he is also like screaming in pain, while they're pulling this out, and they pull it out, and he does the transmutation and immediately passes out. And they're like, did he make it? And then like his little hair antenna comes up, which also happened in the manga, which I love.
I love that detail.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to kill me that easily. And Ed says he had rejoined his organs and stopped the bleeding, but he needs a doctor still.
Which makes sense, and I love that they included that he couldn't heal himself fully, because I feel like the common trope in shonen is like when they do something massively hard to heal a wound, or they discover some medicine to help them, they do that, and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm good to go, sprinting off into the distance to fight another enemy. But in this one, he said something like, I rejoined my undamaged organs, meaning
you mean damaged organs, yes.
He said undamaged. That's what I was confused when we were watching. Like he said
really?
undamaged.
I wonder if because that's not what I read in the manga. Let me look.
Yeah, but I assumed when he said that in the anime that he meant there were organs that were undamaged, just disconnected, so he rejoined those. There's still others
I
that
see.
need
Yeah,
attention.
He does say that. He said I only reconnected the undamaged areas.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So that means he needs a doctor for like surgery for the ones that were hit. But he was kind of lucky that he got hit in the side and not the direct middle of his stomach.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. And now I'm thinking about just like the undamaged areas. Like, what does that even mean? Because like if
everything's damaged,
right? It's your organs have been severed.
Sliced.
Like how is that not damaged?
That's but okay. You probably didn't notice, but I kind of made a face when we were watching it because I was like, what did he just say?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't listening that closely.
But it makes sense when you really think about it, and like, yes, now he needs a doctor for the parts that he couldn't repair.
Yeah, no, it does. It does make sense.
Yeah, and it also means that performing alchemy, not only did he have to figure out how to harness a life force, his own, which took like a couple years off his lifespan, according to Ed. What's a couple of years? But he also has to know the human body inside and out, to have the knowledge of anatomy and biology to repair everything.
Which he does, because he did do human transmutation. So like he spent years studying that. And so I feel like he is one of the only alchemists that could actually do that. Yeah, it's very impressive. He is like he is a pioneer in alchemy, because he first did the whole transmutation with envy and like getting out of Gluttony's stomach, and then he's over here using himself as a philosopher's stone, or not. I mean, he very kind
innovative.
Yeah, very, very impressive. And he's only 15. Anyway, the end of the episode. So he tries to get up to go after Kimblee, and of course he's very injured and he collapses, and the chimeras are like, "Oh man, idiot!" And I love the chimeras are kind of discussing. They're like, well, we're just gonna resign from Kimblee's service because clearly he doesn't care about us, and Kimblee's just gonna assume that they're dead. And they carry Ed off to take him to a doctor, but not before they find Kimblee's Philosopher's Stone and take it with them.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the episode.
Yes. All right. Voice actor notes. We're gonna cover these two chimeras that we just met. So the lion, his name is Heinkel. He's played by Bradley Campbell, who is Reeves from Attack on Titan, Russell from Ace Attorney, and additional voices in One Piece. And then Darius is the gorilla. He's played by George Manley, who is Hachi from One Piece, Takeuchi Henpeda from Gintama. Sorry. And additional voices in Neon Genesis Evangelion. And yeah, sorry, I'm butchering some of these. And the name meanings, I just had to do a quick Google search, so I don't know if these are correct or not, but Heinkel means independent, enthusiasm, and admirer. And then I went to my trusted baby names website to look up Darius's name, which means upholder of the good, and it's of Persian origin. I like that one.
Yeah,
I've heard Darius before, like in other contexts.
Yeah.
I like that name. And we also had to track Ed destroying his right glove when he made his arm blade. I think the left one stayed pretty intact throughout the whole episode, which was pretty impressive considering he fell down a stinking mining shaft.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ed's little short rant about falling like that's gonna stunt my growth even more, which wasn't really a rant. It was more of like a, I don't know, sly comment.
Yes. But he talked about being short, so we're gonna count it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like he's kind of lost his steam when talking about that. Like, it just doesn't matter to him anymore.
Yeah, and also we have noted that he has grown taller. Like,
for sure, yeah.
I think he's taller than Winry at this point.
He might be
or like the same height, or the same height, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And now I'm about to go off on the animation. So Meg and I were talking about this before, but Ed's scene where he realized he was impaled in the manga is beautifully done. Great paneling. But there's something about it being animated with the voice acting and the music and all the sound effects that just, I don't know. The first time watching this, you're just caught in the moment, and it's incredibly done. So I'm gonna break down what I call the realization scene. Realization scenes are like when something big happens and the audience gets to see the character's initial response to that thing happening. So this one is beautifully done. Ed is at the bottom of the mining shaft, grumbling about falling all the way down. He tries to get up. He knows he's hurt, but he doesn't realize he's bleeding yet. The audience sees the blood before Ed does. He hears it dripping, and then he turns to look, and we get to see blood dripping out of his mouth down his chin, giving us the first indication of like, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. And the camera zooms in on Ed's eye as it widens, and he realizes, and it zooms out, to show he's been impaled. Then the scene is free to show the full extent of his pain and struggle. So he's like screaming and like his face is getting more agitated. And the final shot is a close-up of him starting to lose consciousness. I love the added detail of the tears forming in his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead, and his hair slowly falls across his face, disheveled, and covers his eye.
I like don't even have words because it's so good. It's
done right. You have to take your time with things like that. I know the impulsive thing that I want to do if I'm doing a scene like that is show it right away to get that impact. But you really have to milk it for all it's worth because the audience needs to see how serious it is and how the character is reacting to it.
Yeah. It's probably one of the best, like, getting hurt scenes that I've seen in shonen. Like, others, yes. I feel like they just, like, other shonen, like, they just get hurt and then they're like, okay, I gotta push through because they're, like, in the middle of a fight or something.
Yep. I think the one that comes second off the top of my head that I can think of right now is when Senku got hurt in Dr. Stone back in season 1.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Had a lot more emotional impact, though. Like there was a lot happening with every character involved. So that had a big impact for a different reason than Ed's did.
Yeah, I agree. And then one question that we wanted to discuss is, would Ed have actually survived the fall?
I think there's a possibility.
I agree. Like, the mining shaft was a huge collapse, but I don't think the fall for him was, I don't know, like,
well, he could have slid down something and like it could have been like a landslide effect where he was going down,
but then
with
like
some rubble.
Because I'm like imagining, like, I am assuming that the iron rod. Do you think it came like he fell onto it or it fell on him? Because I think
it, given the way it was bent on the bottom, like accordion bent, stuck in him. So I think he hit the ground and then it speared him and slammed into the ground and bent. Okay.
Because, like, I feel like it's more, I agree that that's probably what happened, but I was going to say, like, I feel like it would have been more likely that he would have survived if it had fallen on him.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's just, like, we saw how much was sticking out of him. Like, that's a lot of, like, I'm surprised. Or maybe
it started going in him as he was falling, because metal would be really heavy and just slide into him, and then he smacked into the ground.
Yeah, I could see that, too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if if debris hadn't been falling, he could have survived a fall like that. Just sometimes the littlest things can kill people, and sometimes we are resilient as heck.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like it's like this could be realistic, but also maybe not. I'm gonna choose to believe that it could be realistic. I mean, like,
I choose life.
Right. I think the initial impact he might have survived, but like if he was in the real world, I think he would have died. Like it only because of the alchemy did he survive.
The alchemy needed to stop him from bleeding out on the spot.
Yeah. And we also wanted to just briefly discuss, mostly because we were watching the season 6 of My Hero and like a very similar line was said. So in Full Metal, Miles, when he says sometimes killing someone isn't as hard as letting them live, and then in My Hero they say sometimes killing someone is the only way to save them. So
yes, and we won't spoil what they were talking about.
Yes, no. But
yeah,
very
extremist.
Yeah, and
well, sometimes true.
I know. I was gonna say, like, I could see a scenario where, I actually could see a lot of scenarios where killing someone is easier than letting them live, because it is when someone causes like so much destruction and pain. I could see like, let's just get rid of them.
Yeah.
But
I vote for the hard way. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
Let's try everything possible to save as many people as we can. I agree.
Like, I think especially in this show, like a lot of the characters are dealing with like needing to be redeemed and like redemption. Yeah. And so of course they're a lot of them, like Ed, will fight for life. But I could see Miles not, like, he's a soldier, and that's, at least in his case, that's what they do.
All right, one more thing we wanted to discuss about the episode is story elements. So kudos to the author for being willing to hurt the main character in this way, because a lot of main characters get hurt or quote unquote die in series, but this one goes above and beyond in showing that yes, Edward could have died. He didn't live by some miracle or baloney magic. He thought of a solution and still isn't fully healed or ready to jump back into action.
Yes, I like when things get more intense, and like this was like a legitimate intense situation. Because a lot of times especially when main characters get hurt, like it's like, like I know they're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But with this one, like I mean, I did know he was gonna be fine, but also like
the whole thing with Al happened.
Yeah, like are they gonna be okay?
Yeah, you know? Like, and even like I didn't assume he was gonna die, but I did wonder for a second, like, what's this gonna do to him? Maybe physically for sure, but maybe emotionally and mentally too. But then, yeah, it's good to compare it to other series though, because, well, okay, Attack on Titan isn't afraid to do stuff to its characters, and there was. If I hadn't had it spoiled for me, there was one moment I'm thinking of where a character was on the brink of death. I would have thought he was going to die.
And
I would have been sobbing.
For sure.
Yeah. But other shows I'm thinking of, like Black Clover, not gonna spoil too much, but there have been times where the characters got hurt and it was surprising how long they stayed out of commission. But never for a second did you think that they were going to stay that way. Like anyone who got hurt eventually got better. Even if their injuries were very serious, it was still kind of like subverting the trope to have them, hurt for that long. But of course they got better. And then like Dr. Stone, you could have thought maybe when Senku got hurt, you're like, oh, this is the end. But given that happens within the first, 3 to 4 episodes, and that he's like, the main character, you knew he was gonna be okay.
Yeah. That's the end of the episode. So
yep.
Now let's, what was your favorite line?
Mine was from Ed when he said, if this is really what showing mercy is going to cost me, then I'm going to have to learn to pay the price, right? I thought he was so good about that. Like he almost got killed because of his decision to show mercy, and he was proven wrong. He was shown the error of his ways and his naivete, and like he still had a great attitude about it. Like even if this happened to me again, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's why he's an awesome main character.
Yes. What was your favorite line?
Mine was also from Ed when he was thinking about Winry. He's like, I won't make her cry, especially not over something this stupid.
I love Ed.
Kind of cheesy, but it's
it's
sweet though.
It's his determination.
Yeah. I mean, he was like hyping himself, like he was trying to find the will to live, to push through.
When you tell yourself dumb stuff just because you don't want to admit you're in pain, or because you're like, no, I can do this, I can push through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what did we learn in this episode?
There's a price to pay for being merciful and doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Steep price in this case.
Yeah.
And then who pushed the story forward?
Ed, for showing the possibilities of alchemy and proving that the right path can be the hardest path.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. This is definitely like one of the top episodes, at least sure. in my book.
This is the episode that made me go, this show is something else.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I mean, yeah, this is I would say this is an episode where I was reminded that like this show is
it's hype. It's a hype episode.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna have a good ending. Like it's perfect. All right. We will be back next week with another episode.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.